Welcome, everyone, to Picture the Scene podcast, a true crime podcast aiming to put you, the listener, at the scene of the crime. We are a true crime podcast, so listener caution is always advised. Wow, Rachel, it's been a while since I've said that, hasn't it?
It has been. Feels good.
Yeah, a bit weird. Been like 7 months.
Yeah, it also feels like, obviously it has been a while. It feels like it was shortened quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, last time when we did our announced comeback last time, it never really happened, did it?
No, and I feel like we didn't overpromise, did we? We were just like trying to test the waters, and 2025 has been a funny old year for us, hasn't it? A year
It
full
has.
of amazing news and great moments, but busy, right? So,
Yes, indeed. Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
But I also feel like this session today, it is coming at a time when like it could be a bit of a turning point for us, couldn't it? So let's see.
It could, yes. There'll be at least a couple over the Christmas period to come out, and then we'll take it from there, won't we, Rach? So how have you been? I mean, I talk to you all the time anyway, but for the sake of our listeners, how have you been?
Really good, thank you. Yeah, just I have a 2-year-old now. We just celebrated her birthday 3 days ago, which means it's been 2 years since we properly like sat down on a weekly basis to record. And that blows my mind a little bit because, well, like, where's it gone?
I know, but we still get on a semi-regular basis people messaging, telling us how much they love the podcast and they want us to come back.
That really does make me happy because I love recording the podcast, and I think it's such a passion project for us, isn't it?
Yes.
So to get that feedback, even though it is like not a huge pod in comparison to a lot of other true crime pods out there, that's just really lovely. And I love our listeners.
So do I. It's not about quantity. It's about quality, isn't it, Rach?
Exactly.
A shout out to Rich as well. I mean, we have several, but what comes into mind, Rich from TikTok. I'll be honest, I haven't. I avoid TikTok because I'm far too old for it, and I happened to log into it, and it sent several messages like asking and begging for us to come back. So, Rich, this is for you, my friend. But if you message me on TikTok, it may be a while before I respond. So, we want to share any news, Rach, about us or not?
I mean, do you want to share news, Andrew? I think that should firmly be the ball in your court.
Okay. I'll share 2 bits of news. Firstly, this will be the first episode where video will be available, both on YouTube and Spotify. So you'll be looking at our faces if you want to, you poor, poor things. So, well, Rachel's face is okay, but you know, mine's a bit hairy. And so the second news, yeah, I'll share the second news. So after several years of being unsuccessful, my wife and I are expecting a baby.
Yay!
So our little baby, we'll reveal the gender at some point in the future, but our little baby will be born in May.
This is the best news. And yeah, I've been on the whole journey with you. So seeing it come about, and I'll never forget the day that you let me in on the early secret. It's huge. So could not be happier for you and your wife. Very
Yeah,
exciting times ahead. And obviously Jet, very exciting
big
times
brother.
ahead for the Ogden family.
Yes, and shout out to Bethan from Seeing Red. Actually, she keeps messaging me, and I think she's more excited than me about the fact that I'm having a baby. So she keeps dropping me questions and asking me questions. So it's really nice to know that someone has a vested interest for no reason other than
Absolutely.
because they're a nice person.
Yeah, we love Bethan, friend of the show. What a wonderful woman. Mother of 3, Wonder Woman. Hat off.
And Bethan's recently given birth to a new addition to her family, hasn't she?
Yes. Oh, lovely news.
So, I've got a question for you, Rach, and I haven't
After
asked
all of
you
that,
this for several months. Are you ready for some true crime?
I am so ready, Andrew. I am so ready.
Great. So, if it's safe for you to do so, I like to sit back, relax, close your eyes, and picture the scene. It's the 29th of September 2016. We're in the county of Dublin in Ireland. Today we're in Balliscorney Upper, which is in Britis, which is a townland in the Tallaght division of South Dublin, and it's on the foot of the Dublin Mountains. The area is quite rural, and it has an average elevation of around 1,158 feet. And on this morning, we're at the home of 63-year-old Michael McCoy in the foothills of the Dublin Mountains. Michael lived with his wife, his 2 dogs, and he has 3 daughters. His eldest, Rachel, either lived with him or close by. The middle child, Suzanne, lived in their home, and the youngest, Sarah, was living in New York at this particular time. Michael was a devoted family man, both to his immediate family, but also to his siblings, John, Eileen, Willie, and Margaret, along with Gerard, but Gerard sadly had already passed on by this date. He was known to be quiet but caring, and if you knew him, he was genuinely approachable and always had an interest in the people that he knew. He was a highly skilled builder and carpenter, and it showed a measure of the type of man he was, that he would extend those skills to his community, often volunteering at his local church, the same church that he got married in, St. Maureen's Church of Ireland in Tallaght, and also to the local school in Jobstown. He'd often work on various projects and general maintenance for them, free of charge.
Sounds like a great guy.
It does.
Okay. On this day, it was 6:40 a.m., and Michael was just saying goodbye to his wife, Katrina, and Suzanne as they headed off for work. The weather was around 11 degrees Celsius, which is roughly 52 degrees Fahrenheit. It was a dry morning with partly cloudy and partly sunny skies. A morning that wouldn't have struck you or anyone as being unusual or noticeable. One you'd just accept without remarking on it. Michael loved his family, but he also loved where he lived and the environment, with one of his most defining characteristics being his passionate commitment to environmental conservation and landscape protection. He was the founder and leading member of the Dublin Mountain Conservation Group, which was an organisation dedicated to objecting to developments that threaten the natural environment of Dublin and Wicklow Mountains. He would regularly walk his 2 boxer dogs, Sophia and Fia, in the hills and area around him from around 7:30 onwards. That must get really confusing. Sophia and Fia? Like, surely calling one dog would call both dogs? Anyway, as the day was not particularly noteworthy, and a good day to enjoy a walk in nature with his dogs, Michael would have set off without any concern, and at a guess, probably looking forward to his walk. On this day, he was planning to walk them around Black Hill Forest, which was around a 10-minute drive from his home.
On that day, around 5:30 p.m., his wife, Katrina, returned home and noticed some unusual things that had or hadn't happened. While it wasn't unusual for Michael to be out, the dogs were not home, the post had not been brought in, and the hens hadn't been let out, which is what he'd usually do after he'd gotten in from his walk. I think that actually, that sentence there, Rach, would you say that really helps you picture that this is a rural area, that they had hens
As
on
soon
their
as you said,
property?
as soon as you said the hens hadn't been let out, like, yeah, absolutely. I'm right there in the middle of nowhere.
So Katrina did, however, start to be concerned when he didn't come home. And after a few hours had passed, his wife and also his daughter, who was back home by now, discovered his car parked and locked where he normally left it when he'd take the 2 dogs for a walk. Where, when he still hadn't come home and it had gotten dark, they contacted the Gardaí, the Irish police force. Due to the fact that he was in the mountain regions, fears existed for his safety if he had an accident or anything similar. So a large-scale search operation involving a Dublin and Wicklow mountain rescue team was launched overnight. With the search continuing overnight and into the next morning, at 5:30 a.m. the following day, the rescue team discovered a body that would later be identified via DNA as Michael's on a forest track at Black Hill Forest in the Dublin Mountains, close to his home. His dog, Sophie, had remained loyal to him, staying with his body and still being there when he was found, and his other dog, Fia, was never seen or found again.
No.
really made me sad when I
I
when I
mean,
first found
obviously,
out.
it's really sad that Michael's died, but and poor Sophie as well, dealing with like the loss of her owner. Because I am fully confident that dogs
They do.
feel the exact same feeling and senses and emotions that humans do. Then to have lost a companion as well in fear, like this is awful,
You don't know
horrible.
what you don't know what happened to the Fia because boxers are very loyal dogs, so who knows that they did something because maybe she was trying to protect her beloved owner.
God, stop.
Because the family actually, I haven't put this in the script, I add it now, though the family did on several times over the years that followed put appeals out for fear if anyone had seen a dog or found a dog or had the dog because they took it in, and no news, not a single bit of news was ever given to them about the dog. So,
No.
but back to Michael. Sadly, he had died from a prolonged assault, and he had sustained complex fractures of the skull and facial bones, and numerous irregular cuts and grazes. The injuries were consistent with. I mentioned irregular because at first they thought that maybe he had had an accident or fallen because he was in a mountain
Yeah,
range.
yeah.
But the fact that he was found with his arms crossed over his chest, which I didn't put in actually, and the irregular cuts and grazes made him realise, and the injuries as well, made him realise that no, the injuries were consistent with blunt force trauma to the head during an assault due to blows from a solid object.
The the thing is, right, you think, oh, these police men and women must be and crime scene investigators must be really intelligent to be able to identify things like this, but they must just see so many crime scenes and natural cause deaths that you just almost walk in and your senses get the better of you in terms of what's happened here. That's abnormal. That's abnormal. The way that his wife walked into their home and didn't need to see that anything had happened, more so that things hadn't happened, that was like something's not right.
Exactly right, yeah.
Yeah, police will do the same.
And the cause of death was confirmed by the pathologist as blunt force trauma to the face and head.
A full-scale murder investigation was launched, with police examining several lines of inquiry. You may be thinking from the description that Michael said, no one could dislike him, or hold a grudge or hatred, because let's face it, in order to kill, there must be some hatred or psychopathy, doesn't there?
You'd think so, Rach, because like naturally to go like you must really hate someone, have a vengeance to be able to kill them, but I think we find after, especially after like doing this pod for several years, that's not the case, is it, Rach?
No, and like many a time we've tried to dive into the psychology behind someone's actions or their trail of thought even, and you can't, right? We don't think like killers.
Luckily,
Yes.
we don't.
Luckily, yes. Or so you think. No, a joke. We mentioned before, though, Michael was the founder and leading member of the Dublin Mountain Conservation Group, which was an organisation dedicated to objecting to developments that threaten the natural environment of the Dublin and Wicklow Mountains. His work in this capacity, however, was extensive and controversial. Over a particularly active 18-month period, Michael had objected to 30 out of 32 planning applications in the area, a volume that had generated considerable friction with local residents and developers. He objected to hundreds of planning proposals across a wide geographic range, from Rathfarnham to developments as far as Sheely Quarry near his own home. Sorry
Lot
for
of
butchering. Like, Andrew's definitely testing my pronunciation of Irish.
that's a lot of objections, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, you could say that.
I mean, it could be valid. I'm not saying they're not valid, but you could understand maybe why maybe for a certain group of people, he wasn't that loved in the local area.
Yeah, I guess like when these things happen, yeah, you build up a perception of someone, and you know or even a family member. You just don't know what other people are saying, talking about. This activism had significant real-world consequences. In one documented case, a landowner who had invested €47,000 in pre-planning landscaping work saw their permission refused after Michael brought concerns to the planning board's attention, forcing them to relocate and live with family members. Wow. Understandably, this created disputes with residents whose development plans were frustrated. By 2011, local resentment had reached a boiling point. A large group of residents organised and protested outside McCoy's Ballascorney upper home, explicitly labelling him a serial objector to planning applications. This wasn't a small demonstration. It was a significant show of community anger against one individual's dominance of the planning process. The impact on individuals and families was substantial and documented. Sinn Féin councillor Jerry O'Neill, who organised the 2011 protest, articulated the suffering McCoy's objections caused when he said, "Over a certain 18-month period, Mr. McCoy objected to 30 out of 32 applications. I think a lot of people felt they were concerned. I think a lot of people felt they were cornered or trapped. I know one man from Wicklow who was stopped twice on planning. He then had pre-planning landscape done, €47,000, with the knowledge that it would get permission. But Mr. McCoy brought it to the board's attention and it was refused. The poor man had to move back in with his father." Councillor O'Neill further stated, "He was obsessed with this, but it brought a lot of hardship and destroyed people's lives and even their marriages." Despite the friction his work caused, Michael remained dedicated to what he believed was the right course of action, protecting the Dublin Mountains from sprawl and inappropriate development. But was planning permission the cause and reason behind someone deciding to kill? And what happened to Michael's other dog, Fia?
Yes, to answer that question, I kind of gave a spoiler a moment ago. We don't know what happened to Michael's other dog, Fear. But I find, like, to answer the question, like, was planning permission the cause? I guess we'll find out, or we won't find out as we go along the episode. But you think about it, there was a protest outside a private individual's home that was organised by a local councillor. So this wasn't like some mob. This was an elected member of the council organising people to come and protest outside an individual's house. Like, how crazy is that, Rach? If you think about it like that, because this wasn't just like Bob down the road saying, "Oh, we don't like Michael, let's go and shout and scream so he moves out." This is like someone who's got authority and a voice telling people to come and protest with me outside this man's house.
Yeah, and I also feel like obviously he was the head of the organization, right, to protect the mountains, but there were other people that have supported him in backing those rejections for planning. So, like, consciously, is it up to us as a population to protest outside someone's home? Or should it actually have been a protest outside of the town hall? Or maybe the office in which the team of conservationists operated from? That feels a little bit less personal and less intrusive. Because I do believe that everyone has the right to protest, but that protest needs to be within limits, right? In my opinion.
Measured and considered.
Yeah.
It's worth also interesting that these quotes that you just read, they were taken after Michael had died, yet they still showed no amounts of sympathy in them.
There were,
It's
yeah,
interesting.
I definitely felt that. They were they were statements, right?
Yeah. It almost felt like he had to defend why he did what he did, doubling down. Because you'd imagine some people like, was this the cause? Did you create this anger towards him?
Yeah.
So Gardaí appealed for anyone who was in Ballascorney area between 6:30 a.m. on September the 29th, 2016, and 4 a.m. on September the 30th, 2016, to come forward with information. Now, this narrow time frame is critical. The attack occurred sometime during this short window of time. A 41-year-old man was arrested on October the 1st, 2016. That was the day after Michael's body was discovered, and he was detained at Talagada Station under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act of 1984. However, he was released without charge on October the 2nd, the day after, just 1 day later. A file was subsequently prepared and submitted to the Director of Public Prosecutions, which is a DPP in Ireland, and in June 2017, the DPP made the determination that there was insufficient evidence for criminal prosecution, and no charges were ever brought against him. His name was never publicly released, and he had never been charged or convicted in connection with the crime.
Wow.
I think it took them I think it was 5 or 6 months from it being submitted to decide if they're going to prosecute. So this wasn't a case of, no, there's no evidence. This took them time to consider.
That just feels though. What's he got? I feel like there's some sort of corruption going on there. I don't know why, and I know that that's a very strong word to use, but
Allegedly. Can we add allegedly to that, please? I don't want to get
yes.
sued.
No. But to me, like, somebody to come in and be questioned the day after. So, in my opinion, there's been a witness, a sighting. They've found somebody pretty quick, right? And then just to be released without any charge.
Yeah.
Feels like he came in, or he had a rock solid alibi and someone was trying to throw him under a bus. Like, yeah, I appreciate my initial gut reaction was probably a bit.
I'll answer 2 parts of that. Yeah, firstly, for someone to be arrested the day after, before the pathologist had finished their examination of Michael's body, shows that they thought this man must be involved somehow.
DNA.
But secondly, we don't know. But secondly, if he had a cast iron alibi, they wouldn't have put the case forward for prosecution.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's the thing, right? Just for that cast iron alibi, that same day, just 24 hours after the murder, that we know is a murder. It just feels very firm, doesn't it? Very like let's not push that door anymore. It's closed.
The Garda investigation was extensive and covered a wide range of potential leads, but planning disputes formed a major part of the inquiry. This was not merely an ancillary line, it was a primary investigation focus and a widespread resentment that Michael's conservation activism had generated in the local community. When the McCoy family made their emotional appeal on RT's Crime Code programme in September 2017, Crime Code programme, by the way, is the Irish equivalent of Crime Watch.
And is it still going?
I don't know because I've never watched it. If I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I don't watch normal telly, just streaming stuff.
Okay. I'm not gonna lie, I'm Crime Watch's biggest fan, so I actually shed a tear when the announcement came that they weren't carrying on. Sorry.
So yeah, that's okay. So yeah, in September 2017, so it's approximately 1 year after Michael's death, the case did experience a resurgence in interest, and a number of people came forward with new information in response to the broadcast. Detective Inspector John Walsh of Talagada Station told the resumed inquest that the Gardaí wished to explore this new information further. So this renewed investigative effort prompted the coroner to adjourn, that's not even a word, is it? This renewed investigative effort prompted the coroner to adjourn the inquest by 12 months to allow the Gardaí additional time to pursue these fresh leads that came about because of the crime call. This, however, still did not bring a case to be brought against any individual or group of people.
So why were there no charges brought when the police were pretty quick to arrest someone initially? They must have been suspicious.
I think so.
Yeah, that's just something doesn't sit right there with me, sorry. The Director of Public Prosecutions decided there was insufficient evidence to bring a criminal case. So in plain terms, that means investigators may have had plausible suspects and a credible motive, but the evidence available just didn't reach the standard needed to prosecute and ultimately secure that conviction. And I think ultimately that's kind of, when you hear this, you hear it about many cases that never reach court, like, must be such a kick in the gut. You know, they've all but got a confession, all the circumstantial evidence lines up, you know, potential witness testimony. But when and in my opinion, they're just some people sat in an office reviewing the documents. They haven't been involved in the crime scene review, the interviews. They are literally just kind of going, yeah, we've got this, 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 and this. Do we take it to court? Yes, no. It just feels like a huge injustice when that happens, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know. I fully agree with you there, Rach. Completely agree.
Although the DPP didn't publicly spell out the exact gaps, the likely issues were these. First, there was no forensic link. No DNA, no fingerprints, no physical evidence tying that 41-year-old suspect, or in fact anyone else, directly to the scene. Secondly, there were no eyewitness identifications made. No witness could put the suspect at the location at the time of the attack. Third, the murder weapon was never found. The object used to cause the blunt force injuries was never recovered. And there was no forensic connection between any weapon and any suspect. And fourth, the circumstantial case wasn't strong enough. Even if a motive seemed clear, such as resentment over planning-related disputes, the surrounding facts still didn't firmly connect any one person to the act itself. So, how did someone end up in custody within 24 hours is my question.
It may have been. To know what it could have been like some type of informant, couldn't it? Like, I know this man did this or something like that. But
Okay,
I
yeah,
mean, it
like
could
I have
be.
information for
Yeah.
you.
Oh, it could be someone who had been giving him threats to kill beforehand. Like, you don't. Obviously, they're not. The police are not the Garda, so you're not gonna reveal that. But because then that could identify who it is, and they're not allowed to
Yeah.
identify who it is before someone's being charged. But
The wife might have said something. Katrina might have
yeah,
said, like, he's got a vendetta against
yeah,
us. Yeah, wow. Okay. So that points to the key principle. Motive is not proof. A strong motive can raise suspicion, but it can't, on its own, satisfy the legal test required for conviction. And I guess that's what keeps us safe, right? Like,
yes,
and I say us, what I mean is the general Joe public that aren't capable of committing these crimes. So in Irish criminal proceedings, the prosecution must prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, a deliberately high threshold. Without solid corroboration, like reliable forensic findings or credible eyewitness evidence, a prosecution is much more vulnerable at trial. The DPP's decision suggests they assessed the case and concluded there wasn't a realistic prospect of conviction, which I guess saves money in terms of court costs, jury deliberation. Like,
yeah.
they're obviously, they know what they're doing, don't they?
I mean, money aspect shouldn't come into it, and I agree with you though, Rach. What happens is like you said yourself, when they found a body, like years and years, whatever job you do, you get an instinct to what the job's about, don't you? It doesn't matter if you're a teacher, a lollipop person, or a detective. Like, you kind of know what's coming next and what's going to happen. And I've seen probably too many episodes of 24 Hours in Police Custody, so they kind of like, and I don't always agree with the police on them. I think sometimes they're a little bit biased, but sometimes you can tell that it's a person,
Hmm.
but they haven't either got the evidence yet and so they're always really invested. And yeah, the person in the DPP would have just been looking at the cold hard facts, and they wouldn't care if someone's guilty or not. It sounds strange as
Yeah.
that sounds. They would care is if can they get a conviction or not? Is it worth their time? Which is a
Yeah.
sad way to look at it, but it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the inquest into Michael McCoy's death concluded at Dublin's Coroner's Court on the 21st of May 2019, nearly 3 years after his murder. The jury returned a verdict of unlawful killing by person or persons unknown. At the resumed inquest hearing, family members made emotional appeals for information. His wife, Katrina, and their three daughters, Rachel, Suzanne, and Sarah, issued a joint statement expressing their anguish, and it included this. It has been nearly 3 years since Michael was taken from us, and we are still left with many unanswered questions. We all miss him very much. And his daughter, Rachel, pleaded, "This is a heartbreaking day for the whole family. We just really need answers at this stage, so we appeal to the public to come forward." And the family stated they were still holding on to the hope that somebody will come forward to bring us some closure. So at the inquest, Katrina described her late husband as a fine person, very passionate and caring. He had lots of interests in history, local issues, planning, the place we had, his animals, and his family. She noted that he was a builder by trade and had recently completed a degree in history from Trinity College, Dublin. Like, I just want to add to that, 63 years old and still managing to complete a degree. Trinity College, which is one of the best universities in Ireland, in the whole of Ireland, along with UCD. So he obviously was a very intelligent person, would you say?
Well, absolutely. And like you say, to have that drive and enthusiasm. And I can imagine, like, not just a huge loss to his family, but his community that are trying to protect, the conservation of the area. Like, everyone would have deeply been impacted by his loss.
So the coroner, Dr. Myra Cullen, expressed sympathy, stating, "It's been so very hard for you. He was a highly respected man in the areas. He had an interest." That's weird. Actually, do you know what? I've just realised that's worded quite specifically. He was a highly respected man in the areas he had an interest. Is that me just reading into this too much, or would that imply that he wasn't very respected in the areas that he didn't? So people who weren't as bothered about conservation wouldn't have respected him.
No, I absolutely agree. And that's the thing, like, his thoughts, opinions, and quite passionate approach to things was not respected by those that didn't have an interest in what he did. Like, end of.
5 years after the murder, Gardaí made a real appeal. 5 years after the murder, Gardaí made a re-appeal on RTA's crime code program in October 2021, indicating that the case was still actively being investigated and they were seeking public assistance. On it, Michael's nephew said this.
As you can imagine, the family were devastated. The news of this was the last thing they expected from somebody like Michael. You know what I mean? The last thing that anything would have happened to him, or he would have come up against anything like this in his life. We believe that somebody knows something out there, and we'd ask that they'd have the courage and honesty to stand up and be counted and come forward and share the information so that justice can prevail.
And the reverend from the church we mentioned earlier also said this about him.
He was such a lovely guy, and you enjoyed his company, and we're so grateful to him. And as I say, such a beautiful family, just horrendous, because people would know the family and were fond of them. Like, it's frightening to think that somebody can literally get away with it. It's the country part of Tala. It's a very small community. Somebody must be able to help us and give us a bit of closure and honour Michael.
Despite that appeal, no new leads were discovered as a result of it.
Oh, it's just heartbreaking. It has now been over 9 years since his death, and here we have no significant public developments or announcements regarding this case. The investigation appears to be in a holding pattern, with Gardaí continuing to accept any new information that might emerge from the public, but with no major breakthroughs reported in recent years. The case really does demonstrate that even with public media appeals, extensive Garda investigation, and clear motive, but without corroborating forensic evidence or eyewitness evidence, successful prosecution remains elusive. Nearly a decade later, the case remains one of Ireland's active unsolved murders, with Michael McCoy's killer remaining unidentified and at large. Which, like, we've talked about it a couple of times, haven't we? I can't imagine the killer is sat there living their best life, probably thinking, especially seeing it interim in the news, there could be a knock at my door one day. I can never fully relax. But also for the family to not be able to put this one to bed, like, and how often do we hear it with murder victims, the people that are left reeling? Not that when somebody is caught and convicted that they can just move on with their lives, but there can be some element of closure that
Yeah.
this family has just not been afforded. Not only have they lost the person closest to them, but they can't close this chapter.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think that I know I mentioned the dog fear never being found, but I think that you can tell by the fact that they were so desperate to get that dog back. I mean, I know they would have loved the dog anyway, but I think that in itself would have brought a little bit of closure. Like that's
Absolutely.
another mystery that's not there. And I also just want to add, I need to apologise to you, Rachel, here because listeners, you may not be. I can't remember who I said this on the podcast, but one of the very first ever episodes we did was an unsolved murder.
Mm-hmm.
And Rachel told me how much she dislikes unsolved murders. She likes a nice ending. Well, not a nice ending, but an ending where it's got an ending. And after all these months out, I asked Rachel before I started even knowing what I was going to write. Like, am I going to do a small case or a well-known one? And Rachel went, do a well-known one. And which means it was probably solved, but not only have I not really done one that's that well-known, except to some people in Ireland, it's also unsolved, so I completely gone against Rachel's guidance and request here. So, Rachel, will you forgive me on this one?
So you do, because I did not remember having that conversation with you. And also, you went to the trouble of writing a script. I can't be mad at you.
But as back to this though, I just think it's sad, really, yeah. And it's sad how I don't think I mean, I've said this before, and I've had backlash of people telling me I was simple, and when I've said it on the podcast, but I believe in the rule of law. I believe that if you commit a crime, you should be punished for that crime, but people shouldn't take matters into their own hands. And I personally feel like we don't know what Michael was like. We know people. I mean, we don't know what he was like when it came to planning permission things. We know that people, they get invested when they really invested in their homes and their properties when they want to improve them for their own family. So people, yeah, there would have been a lot of emotions. But I just totally disagree about someone trying to enact almost mob justice by organising a protest against outside an individual's house. If they wanted to protest, I mean, I don't know if the organisation that Michael had an office or not, but they should have either been protesting against the planning permission people, the council, because if they think that one man was influencing them so much, then they should have been saying your process is not right, your procedures are not right, that justify how you can keep doing this.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
definitely think that, I mean, the whole point of allowing people the opportunity to protest is that it's peaceful. And by rights, like, you turn up at someone's house to protest, that's far from peaceful. That's personal. So, yeah, I'm not sure on the rules in Ireland. I certainly know that from a UK perspective, peaceful protests are an. But yeah, that just feels a little bit like quite mobbish, yeah? Like they've rallied a load of people around that have been really pissed off at Michael and directed that hatred towards him. And like, I don't want to take away from the people that have lost, like, I think 47,000 euro was mentioned at one stage, wasn't it? For like essentially planning permission that was all but guaranteed to get passed. Like, that's a life-changing amount of money. And
Yeah.
it's not fair, but you know, that does not give anybody the right to hurt or harm. So yeah, it's such a tragic case, this.
We know that, and not only we, but I expect all of our listeners know this, that when you've been involved in a crime and you've never been caught, those people tend to keep looking, keep Googling, keep looking to see for any new information. Are they going
Yeah.
to be caught or stuff like that? But we also know people who might know something also do the same thing
Yeah.
because it plays on their minds. So there could be a chance, even though we're not a massive pod, that someone will Google Michael McCoy's name and we will appear.
Well,
So if you have listened to this, I'm not appealing to the killer because obviously you've gone 9 years, two random people talking won't convince you to give yourself up, but someone who knows something may be thinking now is the time. You can, just like they have, it's called Crime Stoppers in the UK.
yeah.
They have an equivalent. You don't have to give you don't have to give personal information.
No,
You
you can do
can
it
give,
anonymously.
but just like do something, say something.
Like, yeah, and you just pray that there will be a confession if that's on someone's deathbed, if that's in a moment of madness, like something will come to light that will help Katrina. Like, certainly, like her daughters must be in turmoil, but to be a wife and to have had a partner, a loving partner for years and years, and then for that to be taken away, like, you're never going to rest easy, are you?
No, you're not going to rest easy. And just think about it this way. It's been 9 years since the murder. Whoever killed or whichever person or persons killed Michael have had three, almost roughly, or a little bit more than half the time free than they would have served for killing him. Um, so it's not like they've had extra time, not had extra time. Do something, reach out, give people closure. So, Rachel, shall I wrap this one up?
Yeah, I think so. I think we could probably sit here and dwell all day, couldn't we, about
Yes.
how people must be feeling and how awful it is.
Before I do, we're recording this before Christmas. This will come out before Christmas. We are going to record at some point in between Christmas with a guest, one of our fans, and that'll come out just after the New Year. So look out for that one. You definitely get at least one more.
It's almost like a buy one, get one free, but you haven't had to buy
Yes,
anything.
exactly.
Yay.
Just you've had to pay with your attention, I guess, and listen to our bad jokes. But so
Talk about
if it's
yourself.
yes, if you're watching YouTube, I will put a bloopers reel out for everyone. So, if it's safe for you to do so, I'd like you to relax. Close your eyes and picture the scene. Bring your think back to people that you know or have known in our lives. It's the ones who are passionate about a cause that we tend to admire the most and want to emulate. So, if being passionate about something really a good enough reason that should get you killed. So thank you, everyone. I've really enjoyed this. It's been nice being back in front of the. Well, we're going to be in front of the camera, so it's nice being back in front of the microphone. But yeah,
Yeah, I felt a little bit uncomfortable at times because I like to, like, just, I guess, be myself when we're recording, and I kept on forgetting that it was on video as well.
so okay.
But it has been lovely.
And thank you, everyone, and we shall speak to you all soon.
Bye.